Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we're going to be providing an update on a company that we've discussed on the channel before. They operate in the retail sector within the MJ industry here in Canada. The company name is Hifyre. I'm super excited to talk about them today. They've just come out with some big news. They redid their investor presentation and we've got a lot to talk about. Now before we get into it today, you guys, please make sure you take a second to hit the like button. It really helps get this content to other people who may find value. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below what you think of this recent news, if you currently hold shares of Hifyre, and how you think they stack up to some of their competitors in this space. Now without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. For today's video, we're going to be providing an update on a Canadian retailer in the MJ industry. The company name is Hifyre Holdings. We've talked about them on the channel before, and it's been a little while since we've discussed the operations at this company. So they've had some big news come out. They've had earnings since our last video, so I thought it was well worth our time to take a second look at Hifyre. Now we've recently put out a video on another retailer in this space, Nova. We've also talked about High Tide on the channel, so it's a great complement to some of the other stocks that we're looking at on McNallie Money. And I'm definitely excited about FAF for a couple of reasons that we're going to go through in this presentation. So first up, we're going to take a look at the chart here. This is as of close on Tuesday, October 5th. You can see they had a super strong day, up 7.7% or 6 cents per share on the Canadian side of things. That closed them out at 84 cents. And based on that close, you're looking at a market cap on Hifyre in the 300 million Canadian type of range. So on the Toronto Stock Exchange, these guys trade under the ticker symbol FAF. And you can see over the last 6 or 7 months, it's definitely been a struggle for Hifyre in terms of their share price. And really most of these MJ stocks in the Canadian market, they've really been on a downward trend, and because of that, I'm starting to think a lot of these valuations are looking very attractive as potential investments. So you can see here, February 15th, we saw industry-wide strength. Hifyre was in near the $1.40 range. By the middle of June, share price had retreated under $1.10 Canadian, and as of the first week of October, we're now sitting at that 82-84 cent type of range. Now, Hifyre does also trade on the US OTC exchange, so I did want to pull up this listing. The ticker symbol here, you guys, is FFLWF if you are looking to buy Hifyre in US currency. And you can see on the US side of things, in terms of market cap, you're looking at about $240 million. So really 3 news articles that I wanted to go through in this presentation before we get into the updated investor deck, you guys. So first up here, this is from the middle of September, so a couple of weeks old. Hifyre came out with their second quarter 2021 financial and operational results or earnings. And there's definitely some big numbers in here that I wanted to draw your attention to. So number one, you guys, quarterly revenue up 51% year over year, landing at $43.3 million Canadian. Now we're going to look at a breakdown of where that revenue actually came from, the different business units that contributed to that overall number a little bit later in the presentation here, but super impressive results. Again, considering the market cap on these guys is about $300 million Canadian, very impressive quarterly revenue results. Now building on that, this actually represented the 5th consecutive quarter of positive adjusted EBITDA for the company, which came in at 3.1 million. And they're really starting to see some strong growth out of their Hifyre digital platform, which generated $3.7 million of revenue in the quarter, which is up nearly 300% year over year. So this is one of the business units that's really starting to grow and take off for this company exponentially. Now, as mentioned, we're going to look at these earnings a little bit later in the presentation in more detail, but there's 2 other numbers that I wanted to highlight here. Total debt as of July 31st was sitting just under $4 million, so $3.8 million, which is a very small debt load for a size of this company. And on the flip side, cash and short-term investments actually came in just north of $29.3 million. So about 10% of this company's market cap is sitting in cash or cash equivalents, while they only have a debt ratio of about 1% compared to overall market cap. Now, the second piece of news that I wanted to cover in this video actually came out just a day after earnings were released, so September 15th, and it actually talks about the completed acquisition of PotGuide and WikiLeaf. And these are two online platforms that are really meant to complement the digital Hifyre portfolio. So if you scroll down in the article here, you can see Hifyre focuses on expanding its virtual presence as the company's e-commerce revenue channel. The addition of PotGuide and WikiLeaf are expected to enhance Hifyre's asset-light approach and provide a scalable entry point to capture new customers and Sparks Perks, which is their reward program, in both Canada and the United States. Now, later in the presentation, we're going to talk about this acquisition. We're also going to talk about their expansion plans south of the border into the US, but these are definitely two of the differentiators when you look at Fire and Flower compared to Nova or even High Tide. Now, in terms of the actual details of the deal, they paid approximately $8.5 million US for PotGuide, which was made up of roughly half or $4 million in cash plus shares in Fire and Flower. And WikiLeaks represented an acquisition of $7.5 million, which was paid fully in common shares of Fire and Flower. And I would encourage you guys, if you're looking to invest in Fire and Flower, or maybe you're already holding shares in this company, take a look at the links here. Go check out potguide.com and wikileaf.com to get a feel for what these websites really do and the overall value that they're going to add to the bigger organization. Now, the third piece of news here, you guys, which I'm super excited about, is really in relation to the partnership with Circle K and these co-located retail stores. So Fire and Flower had actually been piloting this program, and if you scroll down in the article, you can see the two initial locations here were Calgary and Grand Prairie, so both located here in the province of Alberta. And based on the success that they're seeing here, they're actually looking to expand this pilot to additional Circle K locations throughout Canada. So this is super exciting as someone who's invested in Fire and Flower, that they're now looking to expand this program outside of just Alberta to include Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And if you think about it, it really makes sense for the end user or customer to have these locations next to convenience stores like Circle K, similar to going in and picking up ice, cigarettes, lottery tickets. People want convenience. They want to make only one stop on their way home from work, and now they can pick up MJ related products right next to the Circle K where they're getting these other goods or grocery items. So now that we've looked at the chart, we've talked about the recent share price pullback, we've looked at some of the new or most recent news developments, I wanted to switch over to the Fire and Flower investor presentation. For those of you who aren't super familiar, or maybe you haven't watched my initial videos on this company, I would definitely recommend you take a look. But the way that Fire and Flower has really set up their company is slightly different than some of the other retailers in the MJ space, like Nova, for example. So they've really set up their company into three different verticals or business divisions. They've got the retail component, which is really the bread and butter. This is 90 plus retail locations operating across Canada under multiple different retail banners. They've got their Hifyre platform, which is really their digital analytics retail platform that they market to other companies in the MJ sector to really deliver stronger financial performance and tracking of sales trends, SKUs, and buyer behavior. And then the third division here, you guys, is really their wholesale division and distribution. This is currently being tested in the province of Saskatchewan, but it's starting to show some really meaningful revenue numbers that we're going to look at later in the presentation. And I would not be surprised to see Fire and Flower start to expand their wholesale offering, similar to what they're doing with their Circle K expansion. Now, that being said, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on each one of these three segments and really build out the full or complete view of what you're getting as an investor in Fire and Flower. So we mentioned there's multiple different retail banners. The majority of these are actually branded as Fire and Flower themselves. They've also got the Friendly Stranger with 10 stores nationwide, Happy Days with 6 stores, and then their Hotbox locations, of which they have 2. So all in, combined under the 4 different brands or banners, you're looking at 93 stores currently in operation. Now, in terms of their geographic footprint, these stores are located right across Canada, so Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and even in the Yukon, which is great to see. And their proprietary data and analytics platform that they really get from the Hifyre suite of products has allowed them to target specific brands and products to the distinct or unique buying habits of their customer base. So these are very high-performing stores that are using data to their advantage to drive day-to-day business decisions. So this slide here gives a great visual of where these stores are located. So you can see in orange, these are stores that are currently in operation. In gray, these are stores that are currently under development, so you can see a big focus on Manitoba and Ontario. The expansion into Ontario is something that we've seen with High Tide and Nova as well. And in addition to the actual MJ focus stores, they actually have 4 brick and mortar locations in Ontario as well that are focused on accessory sales. Now, where it gets super exciting for me personally is the actual expansion opportunities in the United States. So you can see on the right here, Fire & Flower is actually pushing into the US market. They're focused on the West Coast right now, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about in the next slide. So as you can see here, Fire & Flower has entered into a strategic licensing and acquisition option agreement with American Acres managers. And this is exactly what gives them that foot in the door or that access to the US market. So at the onset here, you guys, they're focused on the states of California, Arizona, and Nevada, which is phenomenal. These are very populated states with huge MJ markets. They've actually now got their first branded Fire & Flower store open in Palm Springs. And they're actually leveraging not only the Fire & Flower brand, but also the internal operating procedures and the Hifyre platform in these US locations. So the end goal here for Fire & Flower is ultimately to fully acquire American Acres once US federal legalization permits. And at this point in time, they're just waiting on number 1, the legalization of adult use MJ in the US, or when the stock exchange where American Acres is listed permits this type of acquisition. So we've talked at length in a number of my other videos about the opportunity that I see in the US compared to the opportunity here in Canada. And this is super exciting that Fire & Flower has this on their roadmap. They've already got these strategic partnerships in the works, and they've got their first retail locations starting to open up in the US. So that's the retail component of this company. Now shifting gears here, we're going to look at number 2, which is the Hifyre platform. This is a proprietary MJ digital retail and analytics platform, and this really involves a loyalty program, in-store analytics for various different retailers, and data aggregation to really give feedback on the industry overall and specific sales trends. So if you've paid attention in other investor presentations in the MJ space here in Canada, you'll see countless different companies that mention or refer to Hifyre sales data, and this is the platform that's really powering all of those data points. Now, as mentioned in the intro, they're really looking to complement and bolster this digital strategy, and that's where the acquisition of WikiLeaf and potguide.com come into the equation. So in short, these acquisitions are really going to improve the overall traction that Fire & Flower has, increase their online presence, drive additional eyeballs to their platforms, and create a more well-balanced or holistic ecosystem where consumers can go educate themselves, ask questions, and find answers as it pertains to the MJ industry. Now the third pillar here, you guys, is really in relation to their distribution and wholesale activities. Again, this is being trialed in the province of Saskatchewan. They're really starting to see some great results in terms of margin and top line revenue, which we're going to look at in a second here. And this really allows them to push towards vertical integration, which allows them to capture more profit, better margins, and to provide a centralized location where they can then distribute their accessories and products on a national scale. So this slide here is where we really get to take a look under the hood and see how each one of these different business divisions is actually performing. So you can see again, as mentioned, the lion's share of the $43 million worth of revenue generated in Q2 did come from retail. So about $32 million came from the retail channel. But what's really encouraging to me as an investor here, you guys, is the wholesale division put up nearly $8 million, which is almost double what they saw in Q2 of 2020. And the digital platform, so this is the Hifyre suite of products, put up $3.7 million in revenue for Q2, which is roughly 4 times what they did a year ago. So you can see huge growth in the wholesale and digital division of this company, not to mention the growth they're seeing on the retail side of things. So for me, that's super impressive. They're diversifying their revenue streams and they're showing exponential growth in each one of these 3 different streams. So to close things out here, you guys, I wanted to end off on this page here that talks about some of the investment highlights in Fire & Flower. Obviously, very strong news that has come out over the past couple of weeks. We just went through their investor presentation. We talked about their multiple different revenue streams. In addition to all of that, they've really differentiated themselves with this digital-driven Hifyre platform that provides unique, sophisticated solutions in the MJ industry. They've got a track record of successful execution, so over 90 stores open in Canada, which we talked about. They've had a number of successful experiences in the world of M&A, so Friendly Stranger, Hotbox, Happy Days, which were all folded in successfully. They've got that massive strategic partnership with Circle K. We didn't spend a lot of time on that in this video. I talk about it in more depth in my initial video on Fire and Flower, so definitely take a look there. But this is really a strong partnership that I think is going to allow for national expansion here in Canada. They've got their entry into the United States with this partnership that immediately incorporates valuable US data into their existing Fire and Flower platform and really opens this retail division up to a massive addressable market south of the border. And then as we saw with the acquisition of those websites in the intro here, they're expanding their digital strategy, which is an asset-light approach to this market, which allows the company to keep costs down, be agile, make decisions based on data, which I think is super important in an industry like this that is constantly evolving and changing. So for those reasons, you guys, I definitely think Fire and Flower is worth a look. The share price has taken a beating over the last couple of weeks or months, and I think you're now able to get this company at a very attractive price or valuation compared to its competitors and compared to the value of the underlying assets within this company's portfolio. Now, with that being said, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Let me know what you think of the recent news out of Fire and Flower, how you think they stack up to some of their competition like Nova and High Tide. If you're still watching the video at this point in time, hopefully you found some value, so make sure you hit the like button, you guys. It really helps get this content to other people like yourself who may find value. And on a final note, if you're not subscribed to the channel McNallie Money, feel free to do so. We'd love to have you as part of the community. Now that's all for today, you guys. Thanks so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.